All right, Roger, same boring question that I asked everyone at the beginning, but it turns into a lot of excitement. What's your franchise story? How do you even fall into franchising? Because nobody wakes up as a child and says, I want to be in franchising. Maybe a rare few, but tell me, let's start with your personal franchise story.
Yeah, great question. And it was not a tradition. I don't know if there is a traditional route into franchising, as you said. I spent the first 25 years of my career in the pharmaceutical industry. So both the branded and then also branded sales and marketing, and then contract manufacturing, kind of in executive roles in those. So I worked for publicly traded companies, private companies, worked for private equity, even a family office, and doing that, and built quite a career over a 25-year span. And when the very long story short is I had this epiphany. I was at a conference, a pharmaceutical conference, and had this epiphany that I no longer wanted to have my legacy be the guy who sold pills that treated people but never cured them, right? Because that's the best pharma drug. You treat them, but you never cure them. And I didn't want that. I really believe in health and fitness. I'm very passionate about wellness and why that's so vitally important to everybody. The old saying, a healthy man has 1,000 wishes, a sick man has one wish. Yeah. And I believe in that so much. So in 2016, I had signed up my son for boxing lessons. He was 12 at the time, and I was planning my exit out of that 25-year career. I ended up meeting a guy who had started 2 Boxing for Fitness studios, not a franchise, just independently owned by him, and had hired him to coach my son for private lessons for boxing. He ended up transferring or transitioning my son to a younger trainer who could kind of bond with him a little bit more. And that left Steve, this guy, and I on the sidelines, kind of with our arms crossed, as as guys relate to each other, with our arms crossed, talking. And he was looking to expand his business. He had the fitness expertise. He was a serial entrepreneur, knew how to do that. Didn't have the marketing chops as much so, and he would admit as much. And that's the skill set that I brought. And a good partnership is when you bring complementary skills, not the same skills. And ended up, after about 4 months, lunch here, a beer there, and getting together and talking about what he wanted to do, what I was looking to do. He asked me to be his first franchisee. And I kind of paused and I said, I don't want to be your first franchisee, but I will put up all the money if you want to be a 50-50 partner and build a national franchisor. And honestly, Nick, I didn't know what the hell I was talking about, because I didn't know anything about franchising or what you do or how it works. I'd only heard, that's the road to riches, which, as you know, and I know it's a long, hard road to get there. But I did know that if I was going to do anything, I wanted to do it at a very, very big scale. So we quickly worked out a deal. Ended up rebranding his concepts to the name RockBox Fitness. I'm wearing a Beam shirt today because we have a second brand. We can talk about that too. But we started RockBox Fitness as its own brand back in early 2017. Instantly hired a consulting firm that specialized in creating new franchisors, from existing concepts that weren't franchised yet. My first 2 engagements, first 2 hires were 2 marketing experts, branding experts, one on the West Coast, and then one I'd worked with in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we're headquartered. And we really got right to it. So I didn't know what an FDD was. I didn't know what a franchise agreement was. I had, really no idea. But hiring that consultant, I am, I guess, smart enough to know that I didn't know what I didn't know. I just knew I didn't know a lot of things. And so I bought the expertise. And I've done that really at every stage of my career since I went on my own and left corporate America, to go up the learning curve as fast as possible. I would rather pay to shorten that learning and decrease the gap so that we can move faster. But yeah, it was, and I don't want to say I just jumped into it. I did, we interviewed, when I say we, it was my wife and I interviewed all of his members, like sat down, did formal interviews with as many members as we could get a hold of. I did a brand analysis on the industry, looked at headwinds, tailwinds of the group fitness, boutique fitness industry. Did all of that homework before I jumped in. But that was a really short, compressed timeline because, I believe that decisions take information, not time. Once you have the information, it's either a yes or a no. And once I had the information, it quickly became a yes for me. And that was 6.5 years ago or so, and we've been going ever since.
What a great story. A few things that I want to unpack. I think your transition of career, that you weren't curing anybody, is such a big statement. That, I mean, I'll say is, and I'll pull up your website in a little bit.
Yeah.
Man, you're doing that in what you do with fitness too. Like, the reality is you are creating cures, because if you start, the first step is probably the hardest step for someone to step into a studio and say, I'm willing to try this, and it's intimidating, and then they get connected and addicted and committed, and it solves a lot of their life challenges, both mentally and physically. And so 100%. I think your story is so valuable to what someone on the consumer side goes through, and then even for taking that leap, because you hit a point in your business career where you're like, this isn't good enough for me. This is not the legacy I want to live or leave. And you made an adjustment, which is exactly what the franchisees do. How much of your story gets told on the consumer or the franchise side?
We used to play a lot into that when we first launched, because people are buying the founders.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no road to look back on to say, what have these guys or gals done so far? So we leaned into that heavily when we first started franchising. I think as the franchise grew, we're at, I think we just opened our 59th locations. The 60th location will open in the next couple of weeks. There's a lot more track record and history to look upon, validation, people can call other owners and whatnot. So today, I don't know if we lean that as far into that. Certainly when we have a discovery day, and we have a discovery day tomorrow, I will start off the day with, find out what they're looking to learn and what they need to confirm, and then tell my story, an abbreviated version of my story. So I do relate that, because a lot of them are where I was, and, in a role that's probably paying them a good salary, and that they've got the golden handcuffs of great healthcare and 401k and all that stuff that you have to sacrifice when you go out on your own. So I believe I'm able to bridge that gap for them and say, I was there. I had an incredibly lucrative career and dropped the mic on corporate America, because I knew if I didn't then, I was 46 years of age then, if I didn't do it then, I may never do it. And like I've started a podcast. We're 6-7 episodes deep. At 53 years of age, like, okay, that's crazy. Writing a business book right now at 53 years of age, kind of wacky, because I've really learned that it's never too late to start. It's literally never too late to start. But it can get away from you to where you wake up when you're 75 years old and go, damn it, I didn't do anything that I really, really wanted to do. Had a nice house, drove a Beamer, but I didn't, what is my legacy? And I think that's where a lot of franchisees, they hit that crossroads, and they ask themselves that question, Nick, like, what are the next 20 years going to look like? And so I think my story can just help them bridge that gap, because it's scary. I will never tell somebody it's not scary. That when you wake up on a Monday and you don't have healthcare, you don't have insurance, you don't have, income, and the money's going the opposite direction. It's scary. By Tuesday, you're like, okay, this is still different. By Wednesday, you look back and you're like, man, I am never going back. Like, I am never going back. And I don't see myself ever going back. So great question. And it's funny. I think I leaned into it a lot when we first started. And then now it's really just more at discovery days.
I think it's tremendously valuable, even now, even as the brand gets bigger, because, and it's not just a founder story. It's more so looking at someone who looks like me, who went through this. What did it feel like? And for you to say, look, I've done this. I've been there. The other thing that you said that I think is important, especially for franchise buyers, you said, I went and bought the expertise. And that's in essence what they're doing with you. You've gone through all the mud to figure out what is the business opportunity that makes sense in this category. And so that's another part of your story that I think is deeply valuable to the buyer to help them feel comfortable. There so many franchisees walk up to that ledge hundreds of times before they jump. A franchisor is evaluating the jump point. They're like, hey, we signed a deal. But if you were to go backwards on how many times that candidate walked up to the edge onto your website and said, not yet, and walked up after they inquired and didn't take the call of the salesperson, and then showed up at Discovery Day and they're like, yes, I'm in. But the second they got on the plane, they're like, I can't do this. Like, you're showing that pathway. And I think it's deeply valuable because it came back to your purpose of, I'm not going to wait till I'm 75 to make a change in my life or evaluate. I'm going to evaluate now and make the change now.
Yeah, man, it's wow. The fact that you just said that they walk to the edge and they, we just had a meeting yesterday and we're talking about a couple franchisee candidates that we have right now. And our VP of Fran Dev, no, it wasn't. It was a president of our Beam brand was talking about how, wow, man, that like we thought we had everything answered for these two candidates, and now, and they're right there at deciding whether to do this, and the questions just keep coming, but they're questions they've already asked that we've already answered on multiple occasions. And our VP of Friend Dev, he said it's fear that's what's triggering this. And I gave this example. It's just funny you say this because I gave this example of I went skydiving 30 years ago, right at 30 years ago. And I remember I was in the plane, like, 2 hours on the ground. They showed you how to pack the chutes and all that, and all the safety stuff and the videos, and you practice on how you're going to exit the plane and all that. And I was ready, but we got in the plane and we go up. We're at 13,000 feet, and they open that door, and they start when people start flying out of the plane. And my time is coming, and it was a tandem thing where you're attached to somebody and the instructor, and I start asking as many questions, like everything. I mean, I couldn't stop asking enough questions until he finally said, dude, if you could screw this up, I wouldn't let you jump out of the plane. Let's just go, let's just go. But it was funny. Yesterday, it brought me back to that point where I was literally jumping, like they have to jump into business. And it's so scary. Your mind just starts racing and asking all those questions that you really already know the answer to. But it's that delay tactic mentally to have to make that decision. And that's, everybody has to walk their own journey. They have to walk their own journey. And some people, as you said, may get right up to the edge, and it just, the fear is just too much, and that's okay. And I still think they were courageous for even taking the first step, towards business ownership. But at some point, we're all big boys and girls, and you just got to jump. You just have to jump.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy to use with the franchise buyer. It's the same as jumping out of a plane. Like, even though data shows that 99.9% of the time it's going to work out just fine, business ownership is just as crazy as jumping out of a plane. There's nothing crazy. You have to have that. You have to have an intangible that takes you out of I'm going to lean on a career, and I'm going to be in charge of my own destiny. Yep. But I think it's up to the franchisor to soften the fear, and that's anything in life. I mean, even as extreme as death, like, the reason we ask so many questions about it throughout our life is because we have to get comfortable by the time that it happens, that it is still unknown. We don't know what the biggest secret of our life is going to happen after that second, but we have so many questions leading up to that. And you just go back to all these micro scenarios, as much as like ordering something at a restaurant. Like, it just, that's how life works. And so as a franchise brand, I believe the story that you told at the beginning of our conversation is so deeply valuable back to the candidate, because they just want to look at someone that says it's okay. If you want to do this, it's okay,
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I love what you just said. If you want to do this, and the only person that can answer that question is the franchisee, he or himself, or herself.
There's no sales.
Yeah.
If you look back at the last 5 years, and thinking about the dreams that you had from a franchise growth standpoint, I mean, you're into the 50s of units. Is that what you expected? Did you have bigger dreams? Did the dreams adjust to realities? Talk about, like, how did your expectations evolve as a franchisor?
Yeah. That's an insightful question. So when we started, I had dreams of 1,000 locations. Hey, if Orange Theory did it, then we're going to do it. And I still have big dreams, and we all at the headquarters here have big dreams for RockBox, because the brand is unique, and the brand deserves that type of scale. I think what every franchisor realizes is, as they start to scale and expand, not every franchisee is going to work at the pace that the founders worked at in their locations. I ended up building 2 of my own locations. So Steve, of course, had his locations. I ended up building 2 of my own, very successful locations. Later sold them to franchisees. But I think my biggest takeaway from that this the last 5-6 years is, we have to support them in every way we can, and that can never stop. And you do whatever it takes. You do whatever it takes, even if it borderline, is ridiculous. You do whatever it takes to help them. And at the end of the day, a franchisee has to take responsibility for his or her own business, because it isn't a corporate location. If we just wanted to expand corporately, we would have built, we'd raise money and build our own stores and done the whole thing. Franchising is so that you can go faster, move faster. Individuals can use their own capital. Collective thought comes together. You get economies of scale. Everybody benefits from the model. But just like being, in a company where, there are some people that just aren't working as hard and will never work as hard and won't be the star A players, no matter what type of screening and evaluations and interviews that you do with franchisee candidates, you're going to have some people that just won't run the play and won't put in the work. And then, when that happens, we help them graciously exit the system and try to make sure it works for everybody.
That surprised you?
It did. I'd love to say that, I expected that, but I didn't. And I'll tell you why, because in companies and corporations, nobody is risking anything other than opportunity cost. And opportunity cost certainly has a price, but they're not betting $500,000 that, hey, this job's going to work out. I'm going to like it here, and it's going to be a great career. In franchising, you're investing $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to build your own business. And to me, if I'm not ultra successful, I'm not sleeping that night. I'm figuring it out. And again, I'll buy my way to the knowledge. I'll hire experts. I'll, fly people in, whatever I need to do to make it happen. And that was probably, it was a naive thought. We have a business partner who'd been in franchising. We brought him in late 2018. And, he kind of told us what to expect. And I just, I blew it off like, maybe he's a little jaded, doesn't really, but he was spot on that, you're going to have to come to grips with the fact that some people just, won't have what it takes. And that, I guess I always feel personally accountable for that, because they bet on us, they bet on the model. I know the model works. I made a ton of money with it. And I've seen a lot of people make a lot of money with RockBox, but it's still, I'm the one that sat across from and co-signed that FDD, or that FA. So I think I don't know if we'll ever fully get over that feeling, but that was probably my hardest learning in this whole process.
I think there's tremendous value in what you just said, and that's empathy and compassion back to even when it doesn't work out, I still feel bad about it. And what you're thinking about as you try to go to sleep at night is, what could we have done differently in that scenario? I think one of the challenges that exists in franchising is a lot of franchising is set up to sell franchises versus award. I don't know that awarding franchises changes that, because ultimately someone is trying to show you their best self. They're still almost cross-applying an interview tactic to the way that they're trying to get you to say, award me a franchise. But there's accountability on the franchisee for sure. Like, you've built the widget, you've set up the structure, you've gone through the pain, and a franchisee has to decide how much they're willing to put in. When I keynote conferences, it's all about self accountability. That at the end of the day, you have to decide that you're going to go out and kiss babies and shake hands.
Yeah.
And if you're unwilling to do that, if you thought you could turn the lights on and it's magically going to do things, and your culture doesn't have to exist and your employees are just going to work because you pay them money, you have it backwards. And so I think franchisees have a false, not all of them, but some have a false mentality that I bought a franchise, therefore it should just do it for me.
Yep.
Even though you say it during the discovery process, but
we're very clear about that. Yeah.
But I think it's awesome that you're saying, like, I still feel bad about it, because a lot of franchisors unfortunately take the screw the franchisee mentality, and you're not taking that. I think that's great.
One thing I don't know, maybe this was a follow-up question, but one thing I wasn't expecting, I wasn't expecting to be so positively impacted by all of the members' lives that we've changed, that have joined RockBox. Our second brand, Beamlight Sauna, we're starting to see the same exact thing where, I can vividly remember on too many times to count, occasions where I'd be in one of the studios I would own, or I'd be visiting a studio as the CEO. I go out and travel, and I'll do the workout when I go and travel, and people come up with tears in their eyes and hug me and cry and say that, RockBox has given them their life back. RockBox has saved their life. They were contemplating, the worst decision a person could make, and that I wasn't expecting. So I knew we'd help people lose some weight and get in shape. What I just am grateful beyond words for is how this brand and how RockBox has shaped the future of our members' lives in a positive way, and how wonderfully that's impacted me. So, it's only fair to say, I wasn't expecting this, and it's still kind of hard to swallow, but wow, I wasn't expecting this either. And it's just the gift that keeps on giving.
I would challenge you on that response, because I go back to your personal story.
Yeah.
And it's probably subconscious, but the reason you did this is exactly the reason you just said, that you were unexpected. So it was probably in the subconscious.
True.
But you did this to accomplish that. Like, that's what you set out to do. So it's cool, because you probably weren't realizing it as fast along the way. And now, like, you look at the aggregate of what has changed. It goes back to day one of you saying, I'm going to build a different legacy. I think that's pretty
That's
neat.
a good point. Yeah. If you ever change jobs, man, be a psychotherapist. Outstanding. Yeah.
You have no idea how many franchisors I do that for already. I'm like, oh, go ahead, lay down and tell me your problems. They're like, I have no leads. So I want to give you a chance to talk about these other brands, because I have a feeling you've now formulated your widget on how do you make a difference in a community, how do you make a difference in a franchisee, and how does this fit into a need in the marketplace. I assume you're just cross-applying your widget to other concepts?
You got it. So Beamlight Sauna is an infrared sauna studio concept. So think, 8, 9 private rooms, each with its own infrared sauna. And then we have red light therapy rooms and additional light modalities. So we're focused 100% on light with this second brand. So we're not going to be doing IVs and cold plunges and stuff like that. It's 100% focused on light therapies, because light can be such a powerful modality. But yes, you're right. We were able to literally pick up our sales, marketing, customer acquisition, acquiring customers at a profitable rate, in fact, pick up that model, turn it and put it on top of Beam. And again, it was a single location. Fortuitously met the owner, Cynthia Wagner, who's wonderful. She's the president of Beam and a co-founder with me. And before I jumped, I said, hey, let me take your business. Let me apply our model to your business. Let's see what happens. And we ended up doubling her business in 3 or 4 months. And I said, look, you've got an amazing concept here. There's a couple other competitors, but very few in the marketplace. This is a great blue ocean. And we've already honed our chops, and we know how to do this in the franchising space. And Beam has gone crazy. We've awarded 150 licenses in about not even 18 months. It's gone bonkers, but it's the second time through it. So, but I think, Nick, one thing that is crucial for us is that, because we have this umbrella company called Thrive More Brands that is over RockBox Fitness, Beamlight Sauna. We have a supplement company, a nutrition supplement company called Leverage Nutrition that's sold exclusively through RockBoxes. And all those brands sit under Thrive More, the parent. But what you'll notice is, fitness, wellness, nutrition, you won't see us add an oil change place, to the brand. You won't see us add, a restaurant to the brand. Maybe a meal prep service, because that could be, we've actually looked at a couple of those, because that fits in the health and wellness. But definitely, I want to build, we are building this platform that people, one franchisee could come in and be a multi-unit, multi-brand owner and remain in the wellness space, and honestly serve the same avatar, even the same customer across multiple brands. And we're seeing that. We're literally seeing people walk out of a RockBox class and walk into a Beam session. So it's very symbiotic.
It's awesome. And, it goes back to that mission of getting people off the pill. I mean, you're still making impact in the life. And I love that you're cross applying the widget and all your learnings in business and continuing to push on the pedal. Look, I'm grateful that we had this conversation. I have not talked to you this way ever. And I think you have a wonderful story. And to anybody that's watching this, there's something sticky here, that if you're trying to find a founder, a leader, who will have your back as much as they humanly can, Roger, I think you've showed that's your story. So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
It's been great.
Oh, you bet, Nick. Thank you very much.
So for Roger, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor. Take care, everybody.